Hello friends, welcome back to Aunt Debbie's Boutique. Today we're starting on a new series and we're going to make 3 very simple quilts. Each of them take 1 yard of fabric, and the reason we're doing 3 is because we're going to mix and match them. So you need 3 1-yard pieces that are coordinating, and I found these in my stash and thought they would make a pretty quilt. Now this is a very simple pattern. I use this pattern to teach children a lot in the summers. We have sewing camps where they come like for an hour or 2 a day for a week or 2, and we make this quilt. And we call it a prayer quilt because of the way we quilt it. And once we make these 3 quilts, there's going to be 3 more videos, and each one of them I'm going to show you a different method of quilting them. And all of them are very simple. This is all very beginner oriented. And when we do the next video, I'll explain the prayer quilt concept a little more because it ties in with the way we quilt the first one. So let's get started. What you need 1 yard of fabric with the selvages trimmed off of it. So that's what I've got here. And so your width of it will be like around 42 to 44 inches, depending on how wide your selvage is. And then of course your length will be 36 inches. It doesn't really matter. There's no exact measurement you have to have. If you've only got 35 inches, 35 will work. If you only have 40 inches wide, 40 will work. The main thing is you want all 3 of your fabrics to be the exact same size. So I have trimmed all mine up. I've cut the selvage off. I did iron them, even though you can still see some creases in them because I had them folded here for a little while. And I recommend you iron and even starch your fabric ahead of time. I didn't starch this time, but I did iron it with steam. Now I have been reading, and there seems to be two sides of the fence on whether to starch and steam your fabric or not. Some people say that by using steam, it can shrink the fabric or get it out of shape. I've never had that problem, and I steam everything. Some people say the same thing about starch. If you haven't pre-washed your fabrics, that they can distort things. Other people, like myself, believe in it. Some people will only use a dry iron, and that is perfectly fine. That's what makes them comfortable. I cannot get as good of a press in mine with a dry iron, and so I prefer steam, and I've never had any distortion that I've noticed. So you come to your own conclusions and decide what you want to do. I just know that in the end my quilts lay much nicer if I've used both steam and starch. Okay, what we're going to do is fold it down the middle like it comes off the bolt, but I opened it all up and ironed out that center press and then put it back in after I trimmed it, because sometimes they're not on the bolt straight and that crease can sometimes be off. So you don't want to use that as your go-by. So I folded it so both sides over here are even. I cut off my selvage and made sure it's a perfect yard. So that's folded once. Looks like it's off just a little bit up here. Let me get it refolded. Gotta turn my phone on silent there. Okay, and then we're going to turn it up like this. So what you end up with is a piece that on the center fold side, it will be 18 inches. And in this direction, it will be 21, 22 inches, whatever you can get out of your fabric. And we want to fold each of our pieces the same way. Let me see, I don't know how I folded these, so let's refold them to make sure. Oh, I accidentally made a cut I wasn't supposed to, so I'm going to have to patch that in, but I didn't have a big enough piece left to just use a whole nother piece, but I can fix that. I do have enough left to fix it. So just pretend you didn't see that. So I have folded it, selvage to selvage, trimmed off my selvage, making sure it was the same size as the other piece of fabric. And then I folded it up. So essentially what you're seeing is 1/2 yard and we want everything folded nice and neat, and you want these stacked on top of each other as perfectly as you can get them. And make sure your folds on the inside are nice and smooth. Okay, let's do our last one. Okay, it's folded over. We redid the center seam. I didn't re-iron it. It just puts its own crease in there, but I straightened it up, cut off the selvage, and then I folded it in half again so that we have 1/2 yard shown here. We'll line it up right on top of all of these. Okay. Looks like I've got a little bit of pink sticking out there. Let me see. Yeah, it looks like I didn't get that cut real smooth, so let me cut it real quickly. I say quickly, what did I do with my... Here it is, on the floor. Okay, my pink didn't have, or peach, it's really a peach color, didn't have a real straight cut. Okay, now then, we need to make sure we know where our folds are. We have a fold on this side and a fold on this side. We are not going to cut on our folds. Remember that, that's very important. But what I am going to do is line this up on a line on my table, and then I'm going to go 9 inches over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So right here on this line, I want to cut, and you've got a lot of fabric here. I hope this little ruler cutting wheel will cut through it. I think it will. Okay. Now we want to go 9 in here. So we cut that parallel with our raw edge. Now we want to make sure it's lined up here on a line and come in 9 inches this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I should have put a new blade in my bigger rotary cutter. I'll let that slip a little. That's not good. Okay. Yeah, I used a bigger rotor cutter than I did. I think I'll finish it here with. There we go. Now we have 4 stacks of fabric. I'm gonna have to cut off where I trimmed it a little bit off, but we'll still make it work. Okay, if we unfold this one here that has the 2 folded sides, it is going to be the center of our quilt. Then, let's see, we want to take these longer ones, and we want to use a different fabric. I'm going to use the pink fabric. And these are going to go on each side. And we're also going to need the pink fabric. Here and here, and then we're going to need the blue fabric for all of our corners. Okay. You can kind of roughly see how it's laid out, but we're going to mix and match all of these to where each quilt will have different, they'll have the same 3 fabrics, but a different one will be in the center and a different one in the corners. So I'm going to just keep this in my rows. Let me just move all this aside so we can sort the other 2. Okay, we have the big centerpiece, one pink and one blue now. We've already used the print. And so we know this print's going to have to go with this. So this one will have to go with this for the squares, the corner squares. And these are the center tops and bottom, so they'll go with that one. And the center tops and bottom will go with this one. I hope that made sense. So we have 3 different quilts. They just have the pieces all mixed up so that we don't repeat the same fabric in 2 different positions. So we have a centerpiece, we have the sides, and then we have the corners. So, and each one of those needs to be different. I'm going to lay these 2 aside, and I will sew them up off camera. But I'm going to show you how to sew this one, and like I said, it's very, very simple. And once we get them sewn, we will come back next time and I'll show you how to sandwich them with a backing and the batting, and how to baste them before we quilt them, and then we'll use a different quilting method on each one of them. So I will make up all 3 of my quilts, but for right now, we're just going to do one. Can you kind of see that and get the gist of it? I hope it's not totally out of camera shot. Let me move this in a little bit more, and this in a little bit more. So this is our center. We have the peach on our sides and top and bottom, and then we have the blue in the 4 corners. And each of the other quilts will have a different combination of the same fabrics. Okay, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put right sides together. I'm going to pin in about 3 places here. We're going to be using a 1/4 inch seam, of course. And then I'm going to chain these. So you're looking at it kind of sideways here. I'm going to put right sides together and have this big long piece. The long edge piece. And you can see I pinned the 2 corners, then I'm just giving it a little tug to make sure that we force it to be the right size. Because if we cut it right, it should fit. Okay, that's going to be our second piece in our chain. And this one will be our 3rd piece. So right sides together. And pin these into place. Okay, I'm going to take these 3 over to my sewing machine and just chain them all. Then I'm going to add the next row, which is this one, and this one, to our pieces that we sew first. So let's go over to the sewing machine, and I hope these pieces are so big, I hope you can follow me if what I'm doing. Okay, we have our 3 rows, and in a minute we're going to sew those together, but we need to iron our seams. So the top row, I'm going to iron up. The bottom row, I'm going to iron down. The 3rd row up. Okay, that one is ironed up. Let's iron this one down. Left a pin in. And this one will go up again. Now, for those of you who are new to the channel, the reason we do this, if we have this one going up, this one going down, then when we put our seams right sides together, we've got one of them going one direction, one the other, and we can just nest them with each other. And so this seam and this seam are setting right on top of each other, and it will give you a perfect corner when you sew your 1/4 inch this way. These pieces are so much bigger than what we did on the sampler quilt, but this is a much simpler project, but it may be hard to see the whole picture because of the size of them. I hope not. I'm going to go ahead and pin and nest my seams together here and pin them. There's not very many of them, and I really want them to have perfect corners, because it's not good when the teacher doesn't do a very good job. Okay, I'm going to pin a few pins here in the middle just to hold it, and I once again gave it a little tug just so everything lays nice and smooth. I have my seams matched first, then I'm going to match these other ends. If I have a bent pin, I'm going to pull it out every time. I can't tell you how many times I've thrown bent pins away and then I find the only other one in my pin cushion. Okay, let's pin this end. Matching that up perfectly, give it a little tug so that it meets fine, and we've got that pinned. Let's pin this other row. Again, right sides together. This seam is going to my right. This seam is going to my left. Going to nest them together so that the seams themselves set right on top of each other. I'm going to go ahead and pin this end. Give it a little tug and pin it in the middle. Here's my second seam. This one's going, the top one's going to my right, the bottom one to my left. Make sure I've got those nesting right there. And I'm going to pin that. And give it a little tug. Pin it in the middle. Pin it in the middle of the middle. So when we sew that seam, we'll kind of stretch it out between pins and make sure it lines up perfectly. That's how we end up. Well, that didn't work too good when I caught that in the seam. No wonder I was having trouble. This is how we end up with a perfectly rectangular quilt, is by making all our blocks fit together. Okay, I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and sew these 2 lines, and then our quilt top will be put together, and we'll talk about what we're going to do with it next. Okay, let's iron the back of this. And it doesn't matter which direction you iron these seams because we're not going to be crossing them again. Let's turn it to the front. And I'm gonna, I better check my seams first. That one's pretty close. That one's real good. Let's see. That one's real good. And that one's real good. So 3 out of 4 look really good, and this one's not bad. It's just off by a hair. So now I'm going to steam all my seams real good. Okay, here is our quilt top. Now, I hope you can see it all. Kind of, here's one side of it. It's the middle, the other side, and this is a duplicate of that size. Okay. Before we meet again next time, I'm going to put together the other 2 quilts. So we'll have 3 of the quilt tops to work with. We will make a sandwich of our quilt top and our back and our batting. I'll show you the best way to do that and to keep it real nice and tight. And we will baste our quilt tops, and so that they hold firm for quilting. And then we will do the first quilting project in our next video. And these are all going to be real simple techniques for quilting, but it's just something that you can do on your domestic machine, your home machine, and you don't have to pay a long arm quilter, and it will look real nice, and you'll be able to finish your own quilts. Now, of course, there's nothing like what a long arm quilter can do. They're real fabulous, but we can come in second best to that and put together some really nice quilts. This size quilt makes a very good lap size quilt for people in nursing homes or any sort of elderly or people who are confined to a wheelchair. It also makes a great baby quilt. Now, wouldn't this make a pretty baby quilt? The colors that are in this, the peach and the turquoise, maybe a little bit girly, but still, you could use whatever colors you want, and this will make a gorgeous baby quilt, and it's so simple to put together. So for you beginners out there, I encourage you to go get 3 1-yard pieces, and remember, fold it once, then fold it twice, then cut 9 inches off of, you come in 9 inches and cut off of the raw edges. Do not cut on the sides that are folded. And I had turned mine around, so it depends on how you fold it. And how you have it laying. Just remember, you're going to come 9 inches in from your raw edge, from the 2 raw edges, and just cut a strip and use a bigger rotary cutter than what I did. That I've already lost it again, that little one. So you can cut through all layers, because you'll have 6 layers, no, more than that. You'll have 12 layers you're cutting through. So, and we want to fold them each separately. You don't want to stack them and fold them all together, because they might be off just a little bit if you do that, because the one on the outside might end up being just a little bit bigger because it's folded around the others. So do them individually. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this and learned something from it, and I hope you will come back in a few days when we work at starting to quilt these 3 quilts. Thank you for joining me today. If you would, please like and subscribe and comment and share, whatever you can do that helps my channel out and will help me bring more videos to you. And I appreciate each and every one of you. So remember, whatever you do, do it to the glory of the Lord. Thank you.